Hey everybody, this one is called War Crimes Are Everywhere, number 2. Under international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during a war in his own name. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by mere private persons. Okay, so some people were having trouble getting their head around how we're engaging in warfare all the time. Well, anytime these code enforcers come up to you, think about it. They have arms, okay? And so it's warfare, okay? They're trying to get extortion from you. It's warfare. It's exactly what it is. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by mere private persons. This is all coming from the Roman cult. That's what the Roman cult does. And governments, which means any sovereign, descend to the level of a mere private corporation, take on characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes, commercial paper, and securities, checks, money orders, whatever, is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. And so, again, that's why they want extortion, and under international law, they can just go ahead and assault you, and when you sign something, you just made it legal. Okay, that's called a treaty. Okay, so when you sign something, you just made it legal. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discussed. The civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws. And a cause arising under such laws may be brought or removed to a federal district court under the old federal code or the U.S. code. So, and this is taken from Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the law of legislative jurisdiction, submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President, June 1957. And this is taken from pages 158 through 165. So, you know, where you see the dots, that means that there's a bunch left out because you can't, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I had to put into a slide. So the point being is that all state laws are actually federal laws, and under the international law rule. Okay, so they're using international law against you. Under the international law, they can assault you and kidnap you and falsely imprison you, and then when you sign anything, you make it legal. Okay, that's exactly what goes on. This is Article 2 of the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of protection or the protection of civilians in a time of war of 1949. In addition to the provisions which shall be implemented in peacetime, the present convention shall apply to all cases of declared war or of any other armed conflict. Okay? When these pigs assault you with their arms, it's an armed conflict. Hello? It's time to wake up, folks. Between two or more of the high contracting parties, even if the state of war is not recognized by one of them. That's why if these pigs are assaulting you, the worst thing you can do is start claiming war crimes that you're a protected person. Because, and I'll explain to it here later. Okay, we're going to see it here later. You cannot sign away the rights that are in this convention. The convention shall also apply to all cases of partial or total occupation of territory of a high contracting party, even if the said occupation meets with no armed resistance. Okay? So, gee, that sounds like maybe New York. Okay? New York is under occupation by the D.C. and the territories, and they didn't meet any armed resistance. Anyways, let's keep going. When that pig stops you and with his emergency lights, he's armed. He's wearing a military uniform with military rank insignia. It's an armed conflict, whether you recognize it or not. The fact that he stopped you is proof he's accusing you of being a private person. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by mere private persons. Article 1, Libre Code. A place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading army or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. Article 2 of the Libre Code. Martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war. When the occupation of a place or territory continues beyond the conclusion of peace is one of the conditions of the same. So the only way that it can end is by special proclamation by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in a Treaty of Peace. Well, there's been no proclamations ever, and that I've ever seen, and there's been no, and it's never mentioned in a Treaty of Peace either. These are other videos that I have put up about martial law. It's here and has been for decades. We're under martial law. Martial law is coming from the United Nations. This is all coming from the Roman cult. That's what they do. They make war. That's what it's all about. Alberta and the other Canadian states are under a military occupation. Texas and the other American states are under a military occupation. Martial law supersedes and replaces common law. Okay, that's the whole purpose of it. They want to supersede and get rid of that nasty little common law problem because they'd be put to death for doing what they're doing. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. We saw the misery to which such despotism, and it must be cut off there. Anyways, that's a military dictatorship, folks, and that's taken from the causes and necessities for taking up arms. And this is a cite from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court that's associated with the case Diet versus Turner. And he says the same thing, only in a different way. In the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. And that's why these Satanist whores in these so-called courts sit up there and tell you they can do anything they want. They're telling you it's martial law. There are no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. This is a symptom of martial law. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. This is a symptom of martial law. This is Arizona revised statutes, abolition of common law offenses and affirmative defenses. All common law offenses and affirmative defenses are abolished. No conduct or omission constitutes an offense or an affirmative defense unless it is an offense or an affirmative defense under this title or under another statute or ordinance. Okay, so again, this is a symptom of martial law. This is Arizona revised statutes. You can find the same thing in every state. Then what they do is they sit there and say, oh, we got common law here. They want to maintain the illusion. But listen to this. This is Arizona revised statutes section 1-201. Adoption of common law. See, they had to pass a statute to do it because it's been superseded by martial law. The common law, only so far as it is consistent with and adapted to the natural and physical conditions of this state and the necessities of the people thereof, is not repugnant to or inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution or laws of this state or established by customs of the people of this state, is adopted and shall be the rule of decision in all courts in this state. Well, boy, you talk of these liars laid awake at night putting that one together. Everything is an admiralty. A writ of error doth not lie upon a sentence in admiralty, but an appeal. And that's taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the definition of admiralty. But it's a cite from Book 4 of the Institutes on the Laws of England, which is Coke in the 1500s. Appeals are an admiralty. That's why it's called a court of appeals. Hello? It's the same thing that precipitated the War of Independence, and we already talked about that. Police use military rank structures, captain, lieutenant, sergeant. Military script circulates for money. Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes. Military uniforms are used by the pigs, the judges, the pigs, etc. And under Article 10 of the Concord Act of 1933, the wearing of clerical dress or religious habit on the part of layfolk is liable to the same penalty on the part of the state as the misuse of military uniform. We now live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the press destroys information, religion destroys morals, and our banks destroy the economy. Well, hello, folks. It's martial law. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin or Bitcoin. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the military script, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. This is taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett related to the case Dyett versus Turner. And this is actually where he's talking about the Libra Code. And in particular, he's talking about Article 3 of the Libra Code. And it says, note, under the law martial, only the criminal jurisdiction of a military court is the recognized law, but as Article 3 says, the civil courts can continually wholly or in part as long as the civil jurisdiction does not violate the military orders laid down by the commander-in-chief or one of his commanders. By this means, a military venue, jurisdiction, and authority are imposed upon the occupied populace under the disguise of the ordinary civil courts and officers of the occupied district or region, because the so-called civil authorities in an occupied district or region only act at the pleasure of a military authority. It should also be noted here that the several state legislatures, county boards of commissioners, and city councils are constantly legislating to please the edicts of the federal government, the occupying force, and that their legislation in this sense is not an exercise of state sovereignty, but instead a compliance with the edicts of the military force which occupies the several states and consequently are edicts of martial law rule. Hello, folks. Wake up! This is Article 6 of the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in time of war of 1949. The present convention shall apply from the outset of any conflict or occupation mentioned in Article 2. In the territory of parties to the conflict, the application of the present convention shall cease on the general close of military operations. In the case of occupied territory, the application of the present convention shall cease 1 year after the general close of military operations. However, the occupying power shall be bound for the duration of the occupation to the extent that such power exercises the functions of government in such territory by the provisions of the following articles to the present convention. And we're going to talk about a bunch of them. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. And I've got a channel on BitChute, but I don't have all my videos up there. Here's my front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe the arrow is pointing at the bell. The subscribe button next to it has already been clicked. The bell is not vibrating. You have to click the bell, and then a pop-up will come up with a little box you have to check, and click OK, saying you want to be notified of any updates. And then the bell will show that it's vibrating. This is Steam It. The left arrow is where you can upvote an article. The middle arrow is how many votes it's received, and the right arrow is where you can make some comments. This is also Steam It. The hand is touching the crypto wallet profile, and the box there is what comes down, and that's where you can follow or unfollow someone. Statutes equals penalty equals breach of contract equals Roman cult equals martial law. A penal action is an action on a penal statute, an action for recovery of penalty given by statute. This is all business. Where an action is founded entirely upon a statute and the only object of it is to recover a penalty or forfeiture, such action is a penal action. This is all about contracts. The word penal and penalty in their strict and primary sense denote a punishment, whether corporal or pecuniary, imposed and enforced by the state for a crime or offense against its laws. The noun penalty is defined forfeiture or to be forfeited for non-compliance with an agreement. This is all business. We're going to sell you into slavery. We're just doing business here. Don't worry about it. It's just business. The words forfeit and penalty are substantially synonymous. Statutes equals penalty equals breach of contract equals Roman cult. This is all coming from these Roman cult Satanists. A penal action is one founded entirely on statute, and the only object is to recover a penalty or forfeiture imposed as a punishment for a certain specific offense, while a remedial action is one which is brought to obtain compensation or indemnity. Statutes equals penalty equals breach of contract equals Roman cult. A penal action is a civil suit brought for recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for an offense against the public. Such actions are civil actions, on the one hand closely related to criminal prosecutions, and on the other to actions for private injuries in which the party aggrieved may by statute recover punitive damages. And so that's why that Baal priest, Satanist whore up at the front of these so-called courts will sit there, if you pin him down about the nature of this action, he'll tell you that, oh, this is quasi-criminal because they're getting ready to assault you with one of their quasi-contracts. And we're going to go into that in a minute. If you think this is for your protection, you clearly have no idea what's going on. If you think this is for your protection, you are a brain-dead idiot. My VidMe shut down on the 15th of December, and YouTube channel called Sovereignty International is now free. YouTube basically said that they were going to shut down all of the fee-based subscription channels, and so it was either make it free or it would become private. I made the exclusive content available on my website. I have 2 subscription channels that I accept, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription's $2.99 a month or $19.99 a year for access to the videos only. And if you want access to the videos plus unlimited consultations, it's $4.99 a month or $39.99 a year. Now, I am not a liar. I'm an attorney. No, I'm a liar, because they're all liars. They don't have first-hand knowledge of anything. But I can tell you what I would do under a certain circumstance and where to find the forms. That's the limit of my consultations, okay? And so there's a lot of people starting to take up a lot of my time with these consultations, so I'm thinking about raising this, quite frankly. But so that may happen. Anyways, the only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, and I cannot fight all the battles. I need people that are that know the law, that are fighting the battles on point, and that's why I do my YouTube videos. And so if you want to make it a donation, that's fine. Okay, it's a modest donation. There's no doubt about it. But a whole bunch of people making modest donations, it adds up pretty fast. Some of my exclusive content that's on there right now is Arlington Private Information Share, Land Deed Training, Estoppel Certificates Training, Foreclosure Estoppel Certificates Training, Corporate Denial Training, Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training, Invoice Training, Notice of Void Judgment Training, Revocation of Signature Training, Third-Party Witness Training, Federal Habeas Corpus Training, Revocation of Voter Registration Training, and some Criminal Complaint Training. Now, there's going to be more criminal complaint training because criminal complaints are kind of complicated. And there's going to be lawsuit training. That is not up there yet. And there's going to be other training as requested, depending on whether it's something I can do or not. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups. And so the only stuff that I'm really making available that's exclusive is training videos. But it's you know, that's really above and beyond. You should be able to do it yourself. But if you want me to give you training, then I need a donation. All exclusive content will be on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. So all they need is a contract. They want to assault you with one of their so-called contracts. That's these Satanist Baal priests do. Okay, that's all they do. It's contract with the devil. Matter of fact, I just published a video called "Contracts with the Devil." Okay, that's exactly what they're doing, is they're getting you into contracts with the devil. All they need is a contract. It's impossible to prove jurisdiction exists absent a substantial nexus with the state, such as voluntary subscription to license. All jurisdictional facts supporting claim that supposed jurisdiction exists must appear on the record of the court. And so they want to assault you with one of their so-called satanic contracts. And this is all coming from the Roman cult. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while a season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. See, that's what these Roman cult Satanists do, is they want their own Baal priests to run the courts, because then they can determine what the outcome is going to be. Talk about a racket. To be bound in conscience to account to assist to use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the definition of mort main. Assumpsit. Okay, we talked about some quasi-contracts a little while ago, so this is where they really start getting into the assumpsit, where they can assault you with their little so-called contracts. Assumpsit, in its origin, the action of tort, assumpsit was soon transformed into an action of contract, becoming afterwards a remedy where there was neither tort nor contract. Based at first upon an express promise, it was afterwards supported upon an implied promise and even upon a fictitious promise. What a racket! Introduced as a special manifestation of the action on the case, it soon acquired the dignity of a distinct form of action which superseded debt, became concurrent with account, with case upon bailment and a warranty and bills of exchange, and competed with equity in the case of essentially equitable quasi-contracts. Okay, so again, that's under martial law. There's no common law, so then all we got's equity, and equity can do anything it wants. Essentially equitable quasi-contracts growing out of the principle of unjust enrichment. Surely it would be hard to find a better illustration of the power and self-development of the common law. Okay, this is a liar that put this book together, James Barr Ames, The History of Assumpsit and 3 Select Essays in Anglo-American Legal History. And that's taken from Black's Law Dictionary, page 379. So it's a liar that put it together, but he sure likes it, doesn't he? Both in Roman and English law, there are certain obligations which were not in truth contractual, but which the law treats as if they were. They were contractual in law, but not in fact, being the subject matter of a fictitious extension of the sphere of contract to cover obligations which do not in reality fall within it. And that's Salmon on Jurisprudence, Sweeten, Maxwell, England. Constructive quasi-contracts are based solely upon a legal fiction or a fiction of law. That's why they gotta have that cestui trust, okay? Because the cestui trust has no rights. It is well settled rule of law that he who seeks benefit contract must also assume the burdens. Voluntary acceptance of benefit of transaction is equivalent to consent to all obligations arising from it, so far as facts are known or ought to be known to person accepting. Quasi-contractual action presupposes acceptance and retention of a benefit by one party with full appreciation of the facts under circumstances making it inequitable for him to retain the benefit without payment of its reasonable value. Okay, yeah, so the jail's a benefit too, by the way. Did you know that? Why do you think they want a social security number when you apply for a driver's license? They gotta establish that cestui trust. Hello? Or unemployment or a passport or any other benefit. A kangaroo court is a term descriptive of a sham legal proceeding in which a person's rights are totally disregarded and which the result of is a foregone conclusion because of the bias of the court or other tribunal. Here we go, a kangaroo court. The judge works for the state, the prosecutor works for the state, the police, the pigs work for the state. The vast majority of the disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, and the only witness, the police, all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti mens rea or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. This is one way this Kurt Kallenbaugh has deals with it, and he waives it. Okay, waives all the benefits. Waiver, and this is recorded. If you notice up in the top left-hand corner, it's recorded in Chicago or in Illinois. From the beginning, with God as my witness, I, Curtis, a true man of God, acknowledge all blessings given by God, repent of all transgressions against God, and waive all claims without God. And so, again, that's how he does it. And actually, that's not a bad idea. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. My Yahoo private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. My Google private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. Follow me on Twitter at EngineerWin. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International, and I've got a BitChute profile as well, but not all my videos are up there. So back to the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war. And in the case of occupied territory, the application of the present convention shall cease 1 year after the general close of military operations. However, the occupying power shall be bound for the duration of the occupation to the extent that such power exercises the function of government in such territory. And so we're going to talk about a bunch of these articles now. This is Article 8. And it says, protected persons may in no circumstances renounce in part or in entirety the rights secured to them by the present convention and by the special agreements referred to in the foregoing article, if such there be. And so the point being is that you cannot sign away these rights, okay? And so that's important, okay? That's why the worst thing you can do is bring this up. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that a rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. Now, when I say this is the worst thing you can do is bring it up, it's the worst thing for them that you can do, okay? And because they've already assaulted you. Okay, their bail priests are not gonna. You go in there and you say that they perjured their oath. Well, they'll just pretend you didn't say that. Okay, they got you in a contract. Okay, they're assaulting you in one of their contracts, and the bail priest is in on it. So that's all gonna. They're just gonna pretend you didn't say that. Okay, so the only other thing you can do is go to this, and this is where you can get a remedy. The reasons they want martial law is because martial law creates civil law, and civil law, they can change. Means absolutely nothing. Nothing is absolute. Okay, they have to make statutes. The bought and paid for clerks masquerading as judges, but statutes are changed all the time. Under civil law, your rights are defined. Under common law, your rights are absolute, and under common law, you have unlimited rights. But they want to get rid of that nasty little common law problem so they can bring about this civil law and turn you into a slave. Okay, it may not be right away. They're going to take some time. They're going to whittle away at it here and there and everywhere, and the next thing you know, you wake up in slavery. I mean, that's the whole program here. But if that's all you got, that's what you have to do right now, okay? Until a bunch of brain-dead sheeple idiots out there wake up to what's going on. Anyways, Article 27 of the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in time of war of 1949 says protected persons are entitled in all circumstances to respect for their persons, their honor, their family rights, and their religious convictions, okay? And this is a satanic religious ceremony, and so I've actually heard of people going in there and saying, I don't wish to participate in your religious ceremony, and they kick them out. They shall at all times be humanely treated, shall be protected, especially against all acts of violence or threats thereof. Okay, you're not supposed to be getting threatened, okay, and the pigs threaten you all the time. Against insults, public curiosity, women shall be especially protected against any attack on their honor, in particular against rape and forced prostitution or any form of indecent assault. Without prejudice to the provisions relating to their state of health, age, and sex, all protected persons shall be treated with the same consideration by the party to the conflict whose power they are, without any adverse distinction based on, in particular, on race, religion, or political opinion. Okay, so again, they assault people like in the U.S. They assault people that sovereign citizens. Okay, that's a political opinion, and so they persecute people based on that. That's a war crime. In Canada, it's freemen on the land. Okay, again, that's a political opinion, and they persecute people based on that's a war crime. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public to private, to manifest his religion and belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Okay, so, and that's Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so, again, you have the right not to participate in their satanic religious ceremony. The party to the conflict in whose hand protected persons may be is responsible for treatment according to them by his agents, irrespective of any individual responsibility which may be incurred. So they can't sit there and say that they go on past these good faith statutes saying that that this guy's operating in good faith, so we're not going to throw his ass in jail. And so too bad, you know, too bad. But under Article 29 of the Geneva Convention, they are still responsible, okay? And so these good faith statutes, all it does is get the pig off the hook, but they're still responsible. No physical or moral coercion shall be exercised against protected persons, in particular to obtain information from them or from third parties. And that's Article 31, okay? And this could be used against the NSA and the CIA or Facebook and the banksters for compelling disclosure of a Social Security number. It can also be used against the pigs when they coerce information from you on the side of the road, okay? And so Article 31. So that would be what I would be saying to them. So we're doing some war crimes today, are we? No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. That's under Article 9 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, okay? And that's exactly what the pigs do. Article 32 of the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of civilians in a time of war of 1949. The high contracting parties specifically agree that each of them is prohibited from taking any measure of such a character as to cause physical suffering or extermination of protected persons in their lands. This prohibition applies not only to murder, torture, corporal punishment, mutilation, and medical and scientific experiments not necessitated by the medical treatment of a protected person, but also to any other measures of brutality, whether applied by civilians or military agents, okay? And this could actually be used, whoops, let's go back. Oh, no, here. Article 32 could be used with torture or chemtrails and or fluoride in the water. Okay, so the chemtrails they're spraying in the air. This would be a great argument to use against that. Article 32, the war crimes, and fluoride in the water. And so, again, these are all things that can be used. It's war crimes. Article 33, the Geneva Convention, no protected person shall be punished for an offense he or she has not personally committed. Collective penalties and likewise all measures of intimidation and terrorism are prohibited. And so, again, the military uniforms are designed to be intimidating. Okay, the police cars, or the paint schemes, all of that stuff is designed to be intimidating. And so, I can tell you for a fact that it is. And so, they're engaged in terrorism. They're the terrorists, okay? They are the terrorists, okay? Terrorism is a form of government that seeks to rule by intimidation. That's taken from a dictionary, and I can't remember which one, but I've got it in some of my videos. That's from 1947. Pillage is prohibited, okay? Reprisals against protected persons and their property are prohibited, okay? So pillage is when they steal your property. You know, when I learned about this was when somebody sent me a 1,000-page document that a lawyer in Hawaii had sent to the Attorney General for Germany over a home that was being stolen by the bankster thieves in Hawaii by Deutsche Bank. Okay. Now, the thing about the law is you never know what happened other than it went away. But this lawyer prepared this 1,000-page document to show that Deutsche Bank was involved in pillaging and by stealing this guy's home. And so that's the point. Okay, this is all, any of that stuff. Mortgage foreclosures could be considered pillaging. Reprisals against protected persons and their property are prohibited. Again, anything that where they're taking reprisals. Okay, again, that comes down to political opinions and stuff too. Okay, they're taking reprisals and seizing your property. And in Canada, the pigs do that all the time. Anyways, terrorism is a system of government that seeks to rule by intimidation. Funkin, Wagnall, Zoo Standard Practical Standard Dictionary. Can you spot the terrorists? I can see them. There's a whole bunch of them there. This is what terrorism is. They go and call these other people these you know, whatever. I guess you know, I mean, the founding fathers would have been called terrorists in their day because they didn't feel like putting up with the crap from the crown pigs, and so. You know, maybe these people in the Middle East are freedom fighters. Terrorism, noun of the use of violence and intimidation in the pursuit of political aims. Okay? And so there's the terrorists right there. The taking of hostages is prohibited. Article 34 of the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of civilians in the time of war of 1949. This could be used when they force your wife to live in a foreign country because she does not have a green card and they're holding her hostage until you accept her slave status. It is, however, true that in all common law countries it has always and consistently been held that the wife and minor children take the nationality of the husband and father. That is common law doctrine. That's what these pigs do. These people are just the lowest form of life. That's the first course of business they got to do is get rid of common law because they'd be put to death, okay? They deserve to be put to death. These people are just the lowest form of life there is. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. This is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has a right to a nationality. And so I have a right to be a Texas citizen instead of one of their scumbag U.S. citizen pigs. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality nor denied of the right to change his nationality. That's Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 47 of the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of civilians. Protected persons who are in occupied territory should not be deprived in any case, in any manner whatsoever, of the benefits of the present convention by any change introduced as a result of the occupation of a territory into the institutions or government of the said territory, nor by any agreement concluded between the authorities of the occupied territories or the occupying power, nor by any annexation by the latter of the whole or in part of the occupied territory. So, you know, in other words, they're not supposed to go and say, well, we're doing something with this territory, so we're kicking everybody out. They can't do that. The occupying power may not compel protected persons to serve in its armed or auxiliary forces, nor pressure or propaganda which aims at securing voluntary enlistment is prohibited. This is why they cannot do conscription. See the do-it-yourself how not to volunteer for selective service in the draft video. Okay, so anybody that doesn't want to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, this is how you do it. These pigs. No contract, agreement, or regulation shall impair the right of any worker, whether voluntary or not, and wherever he may be, to apply to the representatives of the protecting power in order to request the said power's intervention. All measures aiming at creating unemployment or at restricting opportunities offered to workers in an occupied territory in order to induce them to work for the occupying power are prohibited. Okay, and so that again goes to foreclosures. Okay, anybody that's going through a foreclosure could say that I wasn't working, and they're engaged in war crimes because they're not making work available, meaningful work, and they're pillaging. This is all a mechanism of the bankster thieves, and they're pillaging. And this is Article 52 of the Geneva Convention. Any destruction by the occupying power of real or personal property belonging individually or collectively to private persons or to the state or to other public authorities or to social or cooperative organization is prohibited, except where such destruction is rendered absolutely necessary by military operations. And that's Article 53. So when they steal your property and destroy it, then that's a war crime. In case of a breach of the penal provisions promulgated by the virtue of the second paragraph of Article 64, the occupying power may hand over the accused to his properly constituted non-political military courts on condition the courts sit in occupied country. Courts appeal shall preferably sit in occupied country. That's Article 66, non-political military courts. The state parties to the present covenant, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing and trust territories, that's occupied territory, folks, shall promote the realization of the right of self-determination and shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the UN. Okay, so we all have the right to self-determination. All persons shall be equal before the courts and tribunals in determination of any criminal charge against him or of his rights and obligations in a suit at law. Everyone shall be entitled to a fair and public hearing by a competent, independent, impartial tribunal established by law. There is no such thing. These whores are bought and paid for from the beginning. In all cases, the duration of the period during which the protected person accused of an offense is under arrest awaiting trial or punishment shall be deducted from any period of imprisonment. Well, there's lots of people I've heard about that didn't have that happen. And this is crimes against humanity, which is taken from the Rome Statute. For purposes of this statute, crime against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systemic attack direct against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. Enslavement, okay, imprisonment or other severe deprivation of physical liberty or in violation of fundamental rules of international law, torture, persecution against any identifiable group or collectivity on political, racial, national, ethnic, cultural, religious, gender as defined in paragraph 3. Okay, so we're talking that persecution of anybody based on political beliefs. Okay, that's what they're talking about, political and other grounds that are universally recognized as impermissible under international law. And so war is business. This is these Satanists, these scumbags. This is all coming from the Roman cult. Check out my other videos. Bankster Thieves playlist. Boy, this came around just in the right time. I was starting to get worked up here. Anyways, Roman cult playlist. Bankrupt corporate so-called governments. Bar members 1 through 3. Do-it-yourself. How not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft. Martial laws here. Do-it-yourself. No income tax. Do-it-yourself. Free mail. Do-it-yourself. Kangaroo courts 1 through 14 now, actually. Canada Border Pigs playlist. Bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. Article 18, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, in public or private, to manifest his religion, belief, and teaching, practice, worship, and observance. This Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In Canada, they're persecuting anybody they call a freeman on the land. In the U.S., they persecute sovereign citizens. They threaten to kill them. Okay, that's exactly what they do. When a judge is a bought and paid for clerk, it's a satanic religious ceremony. They're persecuting you because you wish not to participate in their Satanism. When a judge is a bought and paid for clerk, it's not a fair and regular trial. When it's civil and they're saying it's criminal, it's not a fair and regular trial. They're assaulting you in one of their so-called contracts. Article 70. Protected persons shall not be arrested, prosecuted, or convicted by the occupying power for acts committed or for opinions expressed before the occupation or during a temporary interruption thereof, with the exceptions of breaches of the laws and customs of war. Okay, so that's the only thing they can arrest you or prosecute you for, and the laws and customs, that's basically a breach of the peace. Okay, national is an occupying power who, before the outbreak of hostilities, have sought refuge in territory of the occupied state, shall not be arrested, prosecuted, convicted, or deported from the occupied territory except for offenses committed after the outbreak of hostilities, or for offenses under common law before the outbreak of hostilities, which, according to the law of the occupied state, would have justified extradition in time of peace. And now, what that's really saying is that's confirming, okay, that what happens under a military occupation is common law is eliminated. Okay, they get rid of that nasty little common law problem. No sentence shall be pronounced by competent courts of the occupying territory except after a regular trial, and that's Article 71, and that means a neutral and unbiased judge. There's no such thing. Warning, this is the standing army you were told not to tolerate. There's the pigs. Collective penalties, likewise all measures of intimidation and terrorism are prohibited. That's Article 33. Military uniforms are designed to be intimidating. The carry of guns by their code enforcers is intimidating, especially if they have laws like in New York and places like that. There you don't get to have guns, okay? So that's definitely an assault then. If the pig yells at you because you're not cooperating, it's threatening and intimidating. No protected person may be punished for an offense he or she is not personally committed. Collective penalties and likewise all measures of intimidation and terrorism are prohibited. Pillage is prohibited. Reprisals against protected persons and their property are prohibited. That's Article 33. They're assaulting you for the crimes of their fraudulently created Sesticate Trust. In Canada, they regularly seize people's vehicles that are not registered. Article 17 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that everyone has the right to own property as well as in association with others, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. And rights are property. Any restraint, however slight, upon another's liberty to come and go as one pleases constitutes an arrest. An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. The person so attempted to be restrained of his liberty has the same right to use force in defending himself as he would in repelling any other assault and battery. Each person has the right to resist an unlawful arrest. In such a case, the person attempting the arrest stands in the position of a wrongdoer and may be resisted by the use of force, as in self-defense. And then Article 9, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. This is the Rome Statute again. The court shall have jurisdiction in respect of war crimes when committed as part of a plan or policy. The purpose of this statute, war crimes, means grave breaches of the Geneva Convention of 12 August 1949, namely any of the following acts. So all of this stuff in this Rome Statute are taken from the Geneva Convention of 12 August. There's 4 of them, actually. And so the one is the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war of 1949. And so extensive destruction or appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly, compelling a prisoner of war or other protected person to serve in the forces of the hostile power, willfully depriving a prisoner of war of other protected person of the rights of fair and regular trial. And so these Satanist pigs do this all the time. Other serious violations, intentionally directing attacks against individual civilians, not taking direct part in hostilities, intentionally directing attacks against civilian objects that are objects which are not military objectives, intentionally launching attack in the knowledge that such attack will cause incidental injury to civilians or damage to civilian objects, destroying and seizing enemy's property, declaring abolished, suspended, or inadmissible in a court of law the rights and actions of the nationals of the hostile party, pillaging, committing outrages upon personal dignity and particular humiliating and degrading treatment. Okay, so that's what these pigs do. For the purpose of this statute, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Okay, when they steal your children, they're engaged in genocide. That's the argument. In Canada, they're engaging in genocide against freemen on the land. In the USA, they're engaging in genocide against sovereign citizens. And if they steal your children because you don't want to participate, that's a form of genocide, because they're taking them from one group and putting them in another group. Crime against humanity means murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, imprisonment, torture, sexual violence, persecution, or any other inhumane act or omission that is committed against any civilian population or any identifiable group, and that at that time and place of its commission constitutes a crime against humanity. Genocide means war crimes. Means an act or omission committed during an armed conflict that at the time and in the place of its commission constitutes a war crime. This is the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act of Canada. Title 18, United States Code 1091, genocide, whoever, whether in time of peace or in time of war, with specific intent to destroy in whole or in substantial part a national, ethnic, or religious group, as such, subjects the group to conditions of life that are intended to cause physical destruction of the group in whole or in part, transfers by force children of the group to another group, and so then it's genocide. Okay, so again, subjects to the group to the conditions of life that are intended to cause physical destruction of the group in whole or in part, persecuting sovereign citizens, that's genocide. Transferring by force children of the group to another group, again, that's when CPS steals your children. That's exactly what they're doing, is genocide. That's the argument. And this is Crimes Against Humanity in Canada. Every person guilty of an indictable offense commits genocide, a crimes against humanity, or war crime, conspiracy, attempt, etc. Every person who conspires or attempts to commit is an accessory after the fact in relation to or counsels in relation to an offense referred to in subsection 1 as guilty of an indictable offense. Every person who commits an offense under subsection 1 shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life. If an intentional killing forms the basis of the offense and is liable to imprisonment for life in any other case. Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act of Canada, the definitions. A conventional international law means any convention, treaty, or other international agreement that's in force in which Canada is a party, that's in force in the provisions of which Canada has agreed to accept and apply in an armed conflict in which it is involved, okay? And so these pigs stop you on the side of the road, it's an armed conflict. Okay, that's exactly what's going on. That's what you have to understand. You know, I've had people actually argue that this is it doesn't apply in Canada. Well, BS, it doesn't. It absolutely does. War is when the government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. And it's about time the brain-dead idiots started figuring out what's going on here. When liberty and freedom are at stake, your silent isn't golden, it's yellow. Thanks for watching my video today. Have a real great day.